So I'll continue with the process of reabsorption and the secretion of major substances. So this diagram shows how far the various materials being reabsorbed and secreted, what I explained in the earlier classes. Now, the descending limb is normally permeable to water, whereas ascending limb is permeable to various types of electrolytes. That is a major criteria that is responsible for the reabsorption of materials at different levels. As water is being reabsorbed here continuously, now the concentration is increasing towards the end of the loop of the handless loop. So here normally I show the next picture about the osmolarity of the various materials in different parts of the nephron. So the tonicity increases because of the increased absorption of water, and here the tonicity decreases when it is actually going up. This is because of the absorption of electrolytes. The fluid becomes more and more diluted. This is because of the absorption of electrolytes when it is reaching what is called the distal convoluted tubule. Here the diagram shows the reabsorption of various materials. We have the sodium chloride, water being reabsorbed in both proximal and distal convoluted tubules. And now particularly the electrolytes are reabsorbed in the ascending limb of handless loop. Water is absorbed normally in the descending limb. And also the collecting tubule is permeable to water and as well as sodium chloride, and a little bit of urea also actually passing from the collecting tubule into the medullary interstitium just to keep up what is called osmolarity. So urea is also somehow entering into the ascending limb, then it is returning back to the medullary interstitium because the collecting tubule allows the exit of urea from the filtrate into what is called, we have just the inner medulla, the interstitium. So the concentration is increasing steadily and decreasing according to the absorption of different materials. This picture shows or illustrates that constant. Now the next one also another diagram illustrating the concentration, just the gradient. As we have, you see that when the water being reabsorbed continuously from the descending limb, the osmolarity just actually the cortical region to begin with in the filtrate is about 300 osmolarity per liter. And it is increasing, for example, the outer just medulla, it is more or less about 600 osmolarity. When it is reaching the descending limb, just almost the bottom of the handless loop, you see higher concentration. Actually, the osmolarity is about 1200. This is because of the permeability of water and impermeability of solutes or the electrolytes. So we have the highest concentration of osmolarity towards, that is the bottom of the handless loop. And when the fluid is going up, you see that what a decrease in osmolarity, it is almost reaching 150 to 200 just osmolarity when it is reaching what is called the distal convoluted tubule. This is because of the permeability of this ascending limb to the salt, namely the sodium chloride. As this region is more permeable, sodium chloride is reabsorbed, the electrolytes are reabsorbed, the ions are reabsorbed, so that what will happen, there is no reabsorption of water. As a result, now the osmolarity decreases, the solution becomes hypotonic. So the solution here is hypertonic because of increased osmolarity of 1200, and here it is hypertonic as the osmolarity decreases from just below to up, from 700, 1200 to 100. Because of that effect, now the total ascending limb is also called as diluting limb of the nephron, because it is concerned with decreasing the osmolarity by reabsorbing the solids and then preventing the reabsorption of water. That is why normally the osmolarity decreases as water is impermeable and sodium chloride is permeable in this both thick and thin ascending limb. And finally, normally you know that the same osmolarity of high concentration could be reached at the final level of the formation of just urine towards the end of the collecting tubule of 1200 osmolarity. This is because of the effect of ADH hormone. So we have high molarity, just active osmolarities towards the bottom of the handless loop as well as towards the end of the collecting duct. Here it is because of the ADH effect, and here it is because of what is called the sodium chloride absorption and also along with some amount of urea. Sodium chloride plays a major role in maintaining the osmolarity, that is in the inner medulla interstitium as well as in the outer medulla as well as in the cortical regions. Mainly in the inner medulla interstitium, the fluid concentration, the gradient is maintained because of the effect of reabsorption of sodium chloride along with a small amount of urea. So this is another diagram showing what are the different materials which are being transported either actively or passively or by means of secretory activity. Now here I mentioned about the filtered fluid contains almost the different materials, useful materials which are being actually reabsorbed either selectively or by means of differential process. Now the reabsorption, I mentioned some of the materials being reabsorbed actively. Particularly we see that one, sodium chloride, glucose and amino acids. These are all mostly reabsorbed actively along with bicarbonates. So whenever sodium chloride, sodium is reabsorbed, it may be reabsorbed in the form of sodium chloride or in the form of sodium bicarbonate. So sodium chloride, sodium bicarbonates, glucose and amino acids all being reabsorbed actively. They are called high threshold substances. Then about the passive transport, the green arrow marks, we see that one just actually the bicarbonate somehow here and then water, they are reabsorbed passively. And in this case also normally just actually bicarbonate in the distal tubule, it is reabsorbed by means of what is called active transport. In what is called the proximal convoluted tubule, it is being reabsorbed passively. This is based on the concentration gradient. That is why I say the reabsorption process is not uniform throughout the different parts of the nephron. So these arrow marks, the orange arrow marks are actually representing the active transport of certain materials like for example sodium chloride, glucose, amino acids, and also somehow in some cases we have reabsorption of bicarbonates. Now the passive transport refers to the bicarbonate ions and water in the proximal, and then just actually here also water being reabsorbed, that is not being represented. In the collecting duct also it is being reabsorbed by passive transport, and also some amount of urea that is being passively entering into the medullary interstitium from the filtrate by means of passive transport without spending energy. So these are all the materials which are being reabsorbed passively. And I mentioned already the hydrogen ions, potassium ions, ammonia, along with the drugs and the toxic substances, all those have escaped the filtration process are actively secreted by the different parts of the epithelial cells in different parts of the nephron. So now just actually this arrow mark, the blue or violet arrow mark indicates, for example this one and this one, hydrogen ions and some drugs and toxins are being secreted by the epithelial cells of the PCT into the filtrate. Similarly, in the distal convoluted tubule, we have some drugs and also toxins and hydrogen ions. These are all being secreted. So these are all the materials which have escaped filtration. So mostly hydrogen ions, potassium ions, ammonia, along with the drugs and toxins being secreted actively by the epithelial cells at different parts of the nephron, particularly in the PCT and DCT. So now the next one, the mechanism of concentration of the filtrate. So the filtrate, once it is reaching what is called the final part of the nephron being concentrated more and more, that is why the urine is more concentrated and also acidic in nature. And this is being done with the help of what is called one mechanism called counter current mechanism. The mechanism which is working in opposite direction is called counter current mechanism. So we have the transport of substances. These transport of substances are facilitated by some specialized arrangement of what is called the two parts of the nephron. One part is represented with the Handler's loop, another part nothing with the vasa recta found in the kidney along with the nephron. I mentioned about what I mean by vasa recta, just actually look like parallel straight blood capillaries. They are in parallel with what is called Handler's loop. So the Handler's loop and vasa recta are arranged in a special way, and that is why they are responsible for actually counter current multiplier mechanism. So in the kidney we have two counter current mechanisms, one formed by the Handler's loop, another one vasa recta. These are all the specialized structures responsible for just actually concentrating the urine. That is the main function of these two systems. So a counter current mechanism is operating what is called counter current multiplier system in the kidney for making the urine more and more concentrated. So in kidney there are two different types of counter current mechanisms. They are working in opposite manner. One is formed with the Handler's loop, another one vasa recta. Vasa recta, nothing but actually loop like straight parallel capillaries formed with the repeated branching of efferent arteriole after leaving from the glomerulus. They are always in parallel with what is called the nephrons. So what is the main function of this counter current mechanism? The main function, what I mentioned, the heading itself, responsible for actually concentrating the urine. So these two counter current mechanisms are responsible for concentrating the urine. So at times when the urine is eliminated or leaving from what is called the final part of the nephron, it is much concentrated, it is hypertonic in nature, having high osmolarity of nearly about 1200. This is because of actually the effect of the two systems, namely the Handler's loop and vasa recta. Both together form what is called a counter current multiplier system. A counter current multiplier system or a mechanism, the one responsible for concentrating the urine. Now let's take the first one, counter current actually mechanism operated in Handler's loop. See, the Handler's loop is having a descending limb and ascending limb. So in the case of descending limb, you know that one actually the filtrate is leaving towards what is called the inner medulla. And in the ascending limb, which is in close contact or in proximity with the descending limb, where the filtrate is going up and is always comes in contact or in proximity with what is called the fluid in the descending limb. So in the descending limb, the fluid is coming down, in the ascending limb, the fluid is going up. That forms what is called a counter current mechanism. So the fluid is actually moving in two different directions. One is coming down, another one is going up. So here I mentioned actually the flow of filtrate in the two limbs is in opposite direction. Filtrate entering the renal medulla. Now this part towards this region is called renal medulla in the descending limb. And this one comes very close to the outgoing filtrate. Now this is the outgoing filtrate, whereas it present in the descending limb, and thus there is a counter current mechanism is formed. This is mainly responsible for actually for providing a concentrated urine. Now in the descending limb, normally it is more permeable to water, whereas ascending limb is more permeable to electrolytes and ions. So these two actually the limbs are working in an opposite manner. So the descending limb is more permeable to water and less permeable to the electrolytes. The ascending limb is actually more permeable to electrolytes and ions and less permeable to water, thus forming what is called a counter current flow mechanism. And that is responsible for making the urine more and more concentrated. Now this is what we have in the case of counter current mechanism or the system operating in Handler's loop. Now here is a picture showing that one. So the long nephron loops, as in the case of juxtaglandular nephrons or even in the case of cortical nephrons also, we have this counter current mechanism. So the fluid flows in the opposite direction, just a counter current. The meaning for that one, the fluid is actually moving in opposite direction, and that is called counter current mechanism through the adjacent parallel sections of a nephron. So this is one part of nephron, this is another part of nephron, this is the descending limb and this one is ascending limb. See that one, water is permeable in the descending limb and sodium chloride is permeable just actually in the ascending limb. So the descending limb is permeable to water but not to salt, what I represented here, what I said earlier. And similarly, this ascending limb is normally impermeable to water. There is no movement of water from the filtrate into the blood. And similarly here there is a movement of water into the blood from the filtrate. And here there is no movement of water from the filtrate into the blood. So it allows only the salt, namely the sodium chloride, to move out of the filtrate to enter into the blood. That is why I say sodium chloride, this region is permeable to sodium chloride. See the arrow marks indicating a counter current. Opposite direction, the flow of blood is the filtrate is taking place. And again you see that one part is permeable to water, another part is permeable to sodium chloride. Now the second one, counter current in vasa recta. I mentioned it is nothing but parallel, straight, loop-like small capillaries that are always in close proximity with what is called the Handler's loop. So here also the blood flows in opposite direction. There the filtrate is flowing in opposite direction. Here in the case of vasa recta, the small capillaries where the blood is flowing in opposite directions. So here normally blood flows towards the renal medulla. Now this part moving towards renal medulla, and this is what is called a loop-like vasa recta. Recta means straight. Now here the blood flows. Now just I am making in a different manner. So this is what we have, the loop like the the vasa recta blood capillary. Now the blood flows in this direction, downward direction, just towards what is called the inner medulla. So the renal medulla, this is what is called the descending limb of the vasa recta, and this is what is called the ascending limb of vasa recta, just opposite to that of what is called the loop of Henle. So blood flows towards the renal medulla in the descending limb. So this is the descending limb, and actually flows towards the renal cortex in the ascending limb. Here also there is a counter current mechanism. So in contrast to the Henle's loop, here this is the descending limb and this one is ascending limb. And now this is ascending limb and this one is a descending limb. So they are parallel to each other. That arrangement is responsible for the movement of water into the bloodstream, as well as the movement of sodium chloride into the bloodstream to maintain what is called osmolarity or osmotic concentration of the blood as well as the body fluids. So these two counter current mechanisms are responsible for keeping not only just actually urine more concentrated, but also maintaining the osmotic molarity in what is called the medullary interstitium. So the osmolarity of the medullary interstitium is also maintained. The concentration gradient is also maintained because of these two counter current mechanisms, and these two are working in opposite manner. So the descending limb is normally actually permeable to water. The water that moves out of the filtrate enters into, that is what is called the vasa recta, very easily. And similarly the sodium chloride which is moving out of what is called the ascending limb also enters into the capillary network very easily. We will see the same one in the picture, the next slide. Now you see that one. So the red one indicates vasa recta, the blood capillary. The yellow one indicates what we have nothing but the part of the left front. Now this is the loop of Henle. And this one vasa recta, this is what I represent the arrow mark, the descending limb, and this one is the ascending limb. And here this is the descending limb and this one is the ascending limb. So this is what we have, the descending limb of the blood capillary. Now you see that one, the osmolarity is increasing from the cortex towards the inner medulla. See there you have 300 osmolarity, it teaches a maximum 1200 osmolarity. Now here also in the collecting duct I mentioned already, we have the same high osmolarity concentration. This is because of the ADH effect, antidiuretic hormonal effect, but here this is because of the sodium chloride, that is movement, and also water movement. Now the water that leaves from the descending limb enters into simply the ascending limb of the vasa recta. The water leaves from the descending limb of Henle's loop easily enters into the ascending limb of vasa recta. And similarly the sodium chloride which leaves from the filtrate from the descending limb, actually see that one, sorry, this is the ascending, from the ascending limb enters into the descending limb of what is called vasa recta. See that one very clearly. So the salts, ions, or simply we can say the electrolytes which are leaving from the ascending limb of Henle's loop enters into the descending limb of vasa recta. The water that leaves from the descending limb of Henle's loop enters into the ascending limb of vasa recta. So in such a way the two counter current mechanisms are operating to maintain the osmolarity, particularly in the medullary interstitium. So don't forget, so the sodium chloride or the electrolytes which are leaving from the ascending limb enter into the descending limb of vasa recta. The water which leaves from the descending limb of Henle's loop enters into the ascending limb of vasa recta. So these two systems are operating together mainly for increasing the concentration of the filtrate to form the urine. So at times the urine is formed, it is highly hypertonic with an osmolarity of 1200. The same osmolarity what we have at the bottom of the Henle's loop. Now you see that when I mentioned the proximity, the close arrangement between the Henle's loop and vasa recta as well as the counter current in them. So the vasa recta as well as what is called the Henle's loop are arranged in close proximity, and there exists in both we have a counter current mechanism, and this one is helping in maintaining the increasing osmolarity in the what is called inner medullary interstitium. So increasing osmolarity towards the inner medullary interstitium, what I described earlier. So from just 300 osmolarity in the cortical region to 600 osmolarity in the outer medulla, and 1200 osmolarity in the inner medulla. This is because of the effect of the two countercurrent mechanisms named the Handler's loop as well as vasa recta, because they are arranged very close together. That is why I mentioned the proximity between the two, and also the counter mechanism operating in these two responsible for increasing the osmolarity. And this increase in concentration gradient is chiefly responsible for concentrating the urine, and this is being done with the help of, I mentioned earlier, by sodium chloride in urea. So the gradient just increasing osmolarity from cortical region towards the inner medulla, and the concentration gradient is also brought about mainly by the sodium chloride and a little bit by urea. The movement of sodium chloride in the ascending limb of Handler's loop, and also the permeability of water to descending limb, and these two are responsible for increasing the osmolarity from cortical region of 300 to 1200. So we have a maximum osmolarity at the bottom of the Handler's loop of 1200, and so also in the what is called the collecting duct of the nephron at the end, the same osmolarity, where you have, because of ADH effect, it causes the reabsorption of water and more, that results in increase in osmolarity, a little bit of movement of urea too. The same picture what I represented. We have, this is cortex, this is what we have, the outer medulla, inner medulla. See the maximum osmolarity, and here also we have the maximum osmolarity, just both at the bottom of what is called the Handler's loop as well as at the bottom of vasa recta we have the same osmolarity. And this is because of the concentration gradient here, what is called the medullary interstitium, maintained because of the effect of the movement of sodium chloride. See, the sodium chloride is moving from, and that one is entering here. You see that one in the descending limb. So it is leaving from here and entering here. A simple diagram once again, the same one. I mentioned earlier once again the same statement, I want to repeat it. The descending limb of Handler's loop is extremely permeable to water and impermeable to electrolytes. The mechanism, that is a major factor. So the 300 osmolarity, that is fluid, that is from the cortical region. The loop loses water, namely the Handler's loop loses water and increases in tonicity because of the loss of water in that fluid having osmolarity in the cortical region nephron, that is namely 300 osmolarity. It loses water and is increased in tonicity until it reaches the maximum osmolarity of 1200 at the bottom of the loop. So gradually it is losing water and finally it is reaching a maximum osmolarity of 1200. So we have a maximum osmolarity only at the bottom of the Handler's loop. So this is the area what I represented earlier. This area represents the highest concentration, hypertonic or high osmolarity, the nephron. But the collecting duct what I mentioned also can maintain the same highest osmolarity. This is because of the effect of ADH. So the concentration is increasing, the solution becomes hypertonic, or we have what is called high osmolarity at the bottom of the Handler's loop in just Handler's loop. The same osmolarity of 1200 being reached in the collecting duct at the end where the urine is more concentrated. This is because of the ADH effect, which favors the reabsorption of water more and more from that collecting duct. So I am repeating the same also, just I want to read that one, the same what I described. The ascending limb of Handler's loop is impermeable to water but actively reabsorbs what I said earlier, solutes or the electrolytes from the filtrate. Therefore, water is not reabsorbed and ions are reabsorbed. Here the electrolytes and ions are reabsorbed. And as ions and electrolytes are leaving the filtrate, you know that when the concentration becomes decreased, the concentration becomes more and more what is called hypertonic. When the solution is reaching towards the top of the ascending limb, it becomes hypertonic. So until it reaches approximately 100 to 150 osmolarity. That's why I said already the ascending limb is also called the diluting segment of the nephron because of its ability to just dilute the fluid that is in the loop from 1200 osmolarity from the bottom towards up, where you have the osmolarity of what is called 100. This is because of the effect of the Handler's loop. That is why it is called as only the ascending limb, because it is impermeable to water but permeable to electrolytes. That is why we have the hypertonicity. The solution becomes hypertonic from bottom towards up. This is because of the permeability of the ascending limb to the electrolytes, thus causes decrease in osmolarity. That's why it's called as diluting segment of the nephron, because it dilutes actually the fluid from 1200 osmolarity to 100 osmolarity when it reaches. What I represent the picture. You see the same one here. You see that one 1200 osmolarity. Now this ascending limb is permeable to what is called the electrolyte. So that you see that one, we have reached hypertonic condition at the top of the ascending limb, where you have 100 osmolarity, at the bottom you have 1200. So it is being decreased, it is being diluted, the fluid being diluted. That is why this segment is called as the diluting segment of the nephron. And further, once again you see that one here in the distal convoluted tubule, we have once again, as in the case of the cortical region, 300 osmolarity in the what is called the, to begin with, in the cortical region, the descending. The same one we could reach in the distal convoluted tubule. Once again the osmolarity increases because of once again the reabsorption of water. It is because of the ADH effect. So the osmolarity, once again you see that one, it is being increased. Here is increasing and then again decreasing, reaching 300. Once again it is reaching 1200 at the end of the collecting duct. This is because of the effect of ADH hormone. It favors the reabsorption of more and more water, so that the solution becomes more concentrated and becomes more and more hypertonic. So the same one here, it is being given in the form of notes. Sodium chloride is transported by the ascending limb of Handler's lobe, which is exchanged with the descending limb of vasa recta, what I said. From ascending limb of Handler's lobe to descending limb of vasa recta. Similarly, small amounts of urea also enter into the thin segment of ascending limb, what I said. But once again, it is being normally entering back to the interstitium because of actually the easy passage of collecting tubule to nephron. So the urea enters into the ascending limb, that is into the filtrate. Once again it is returning back to the interstitium. This is because actually it's being transported by the collecting duct, because it is simply allowing the passage of urea from, that is what is called the filtrate, into the interstitium with the help of ADH. So small amount of urea enters into the ascending limb, thin ascending limb. Once again it is being returned back to the medullary interstitium, that is a fluid, the region between the nephrons. This is because of the effect of ADH. The same on the same illustration here, just a clear picture. Now this illustration, what I mentioned, is nothing but the region of the medulla where you have the fluid accumulation just in between the nephrons. So we have the cortex medulla, say active absorption of sodium chloride, active water absorption and passive water absorption. You have the passive water reabsorption mainly in the Handler's lobe, and active water reabsorption. That's why just I want to give the picture. You see that one, the arrow mark very thick, and you get the arrow mark very thin. So in the Handler's lobe, just a passive reabsorption of water takes place. But in the in the collecting duct, it is by means of what is called active absorption of water with the help of ADH hormone. That's why the arrow marks are very thick here and very thin. So here by passive absorption of water, here by means of active absorption of water with the help of ADH hormone. That is why the urine becomes more and more concentrated. So how is it possible? How these two mechanisms are working together to create what is called the concentrated urine? This is because of the slow movement of fluid in both vasa recta as well as in the case of that is Handler's lobe. And normally, in the case of vasa recta, the fluid movement, namely the blood movement, is very slow. And also in the Handler's lobe, the filtrate movement is very slow. And that low movement of blood actually provides a time for maintaining the osmotic equilibrium. So the water that is being driven out from what is the Handler's lobe enters into what is called just the vasa recta. As it is moving very slowly in the descending limb, the water is actually, the fluid is moving very slowly and the blood is also moving very slowly in the vasa recta. That slow movement is normally allowing the movement of water, the passage of water easily from what is called the descending limb to the vasa recta that is capillary network. So that is the one responsible maintaining the osmotic equilibrium. This is the slow movement of blood, the slow movement of filtering, that is responsible for maintaining the osmotic equilibrium. So how much amount of water being reabsorbed and how much amount of water actually the electrolytes being reabsorbed in the handless loop. So altogether nearly 25% of the filtered ions and 20% of the filtered water being reabsorbed in the handless loop. Not 100% ions, not 100% what is called water. So major amount of water reabsorption takes place in the proximal as well as in the collecting duct and also the distal conductivity. But only 20% of the filtered water is reabsorbed and 25% of the filtered ions being reabsorbed in the handless loop. And what is the driving force or the powering force or the energy force for reabsorption? The powering force is provided by what is called sodium potassium ATPase, adenosine triphosphatase, and that is the driving force or the powering force for the movement of what is called the ions of water, or for reabsorption process the driving force or the powering force is nothing but sodium potassium, what is called adenosine triphosphatase. This force is responsible for driving out nearly 3 sodium ions out into the peritubular fluid, nothing but actually the interstitium, and pumping in, that is 2 just what is called potassium ions into the cell, not on the lumen side but on the non-lumen side of the cell. Suppose you have, this is what is called the lumen, this is the lumen, we have the cells, maybe the cells. Now here actually the potassium is moving in on the non-lumen side. This is the non-lumen side. Now the potassium is moving in because of the driving force and the powering force. And normally the potassium, just actually sodium moves out of the filtrate. Moves out of the filtrate. So from the lumen here, here. So this is the sodium from the lumen, it is moving out. So this driving force normally drives out 3 potassium ions for every 3 sodium ions for every 2 potassium ions that is moving into the cell on the non-lumen side. Now this is the lumen side of the cell, this is the non-lumen side of the cell. So here 3 sodium ions are moving out and here 2 potassium ions are moving into the cell on the non-lumen side. This is because of the driving force, namely sodium potassium ATPase, that is responsible for maintaining the osmotic equilibrium or electrostatic neutrality inside the cells. Now what is the significance of countercurrent mechanisms? And normally I mentioned this one is to maintain a concentration gradient. A concentration gradient is maintained in the medullary fluid, what is called the medullary interstitium. And such concentration gradient actually is responsible for helping for easy passage of water from the collecting tubule into, just actually into, easy passage of water from the collecting tubule into the interstitium so that the urine becomes more concentrated. So the main responsibility of the what is called the countercurrent mechanism is normally maintaining a concentration gradient in the medullary interstitium. Such a concentration gradient helps in allowing the easy passage of water from the collecting tubule into the interstitium, thus making the urine more concentrated. That is the main important function of countercurrent mechanism. So our kidneys are producing actually urine 4 times concentrated than that of what is called just initial filtrate form. So the initial filtrate is concentrated more and more, that is 4 times it is being concentrated. So at times the urine is formed at the end is actually 4 times more concentrated than that the filtrate that is formed first. So that is the main function affected by countercurrent mechanism. Now the regulation of kidney function. So the kidney has different functions, and similar the function of kidney has been regulated by different structures. So its function is efficiently normally monitored and regulated by hormonal feedback mechanism. We have a hormonal feedback mechanism responsible for monitoring and regulating the functions of what is called the kidney. Now which involves 3 main structures. 1, the hypothalamus of the brain. Number 2, the JGA apparatus of the kidney. And number 3, just to some extent the heart itself. It is having the effect of controlling the kidney functions to a certain extent. So three important structures are responsible for hormonal mechanism, hormonal feedback mechanism of controlling or regulating and monitoring the functions of kidney. One is the hypothalamus of the brain. The second one, JGA, that is juxtaglomerular apparatus of the kidney. And the third one, to some extent, we have the heart itself. Now let's see what is the role of hypothalamus. So normally osmoreceptor cells are found actually in the hypothalamus. These osmoreceptor cells are stimulated or activated by certain factors when there is a change in volume of blood, when there is a change in volume of body fluids, or when there is a change in ionic concentration. So when these three factors are changing from a normal optimum level, ultimately the osmoreceptor cells are activated. So osmoreceptor cells are specialized cells found in the hypothalamus. They are responding to change in osmotic pressure or osmotic gradient of the blood. And normally that is being stimulated when there is a change in the volume of blood or change in what we have the body fluid concentration or volume, or also we have change in ionic concentration. These are the three important factors: volume of blood, volume of what is called just actually the body fluid, and also the ionic concentration change. These factors affect the osmoreceptor cells and making the osmoreceptor cells to be activated. Now just what will happen when there is a loss of fluid from the body, and what will happen when there is more fluid, there is water content in the body. Now when you have more loss of fluid from the body, and that stimulus activates the osmoreceptors of the hypothalamus. Once osmoreceptors are actually stimulated and they stimulate the hypothalamus. Once the hypothalamus is stimulated, it stimulates the release of antidiuretic hormone from what is called neurohypophysis, because it is under the control of hypothalamus. So loss of fluid from the body, this stimulus activates the osmoreceptor cells. The osmoreceptor cells stimulate the hypothalamus. Now hypothalamus is responding and stimulate the release of ADH from neurohypophysis. And once ADH is released, it facilitates the reabsorption of water from the collecting tubule, more and more water being reabsorbed, and preventing diuresis. So what is diuresis? Elimination of large volume of diluted urine. So the elimination of large volume of diluted urine is prevented by this hormone. Hence, the process antidiuresis, as it is having the antidiuretic effect, the hormone is called ADH hormone. Diuresis, elimination of large volume of diluted urine. Antidiuresis, elimination of concentrated scanty urine. So this is what is happening, the mechanism when you have the loss of fluid. So what will happen if you have more amount of water? When you have increase in body fluid, volume. This is because of the presence of more amount. So loss of fluid from the body means loss of water. When you have more water content in the body fluid, what will happen? The osmoreceptor cells being switched off. So there is no stimulation of hypothalamus. So there is no release of ADH. Now the suppression of ADH secretion occurs. Ultimately, we have complete the feedback. So the water reabsorption is not taking place because ADH hormone is not released. So these are the two mechanisms operating because of the effect of hypothalamus. Now what is the other role of ADH? One role, reabsorption of water, preventing what is called diuresis as well as antidiuretic effect. Now other role of ADH in the kidney function. What is its role? It can also affect the kidney function because it's another name. ADH has another name, what is called vasopressin. This is another name of the hormone because of its effectivity on constriction of blood vessels. That's why this hormone is called vasopressin. Now it can cause actually the constriction of blood vessels, thereby just regulating the kidney function. That is why the name is given vasopressin hormone. So it can affect the kidney function by its constrictory effect on blood vessels. Once the blood vessel diameter has been decreased because of the constriction, what will happen? The BP is increasing. When the BP is increasing, ultimately what will happen? The cardiac output is increasing, so also the glomerular filtration rate. So where there is more plasma flow to the kidney, more filtrate being formed. So the glomerular filtration rate increases. This is another effect. So it is also having another effect by causing the constriction of blood vessels, thereby increasing the BP. When the BP is more, the cardiac output is more. So also the volume of blood that reaches the kidney. As a result, the GFR, the glomerular filtration rate, increases so that more fluid is eliminated. At times when you have more fluid is present in the body. So two effects, all are interrelated to one another. Now the second one, what is the role of juxtaglomerular apparatus? I mentioned actually the JGA apparatus is a complex sensitive structure found in the kidney formed of juxtaglomerular cells of the afferent arteriole, macula densa of tubular epithelium of distal convoluted tubule, and also Lassie cells present just at the vascular angle formed by the afferent arteriole. Now, we'll take here renin-angiotensin mechanism. So the JGA, one of the cells, the apparatus contains juxtaglomerular cells found in the afferent arteriole, not if it's not muscles. Now these cells secrete one hormone by name renin. This renin hormone just regulates the angiotensin, another substance actually circulating in the blood. That's why it's called a renin-angiotensin mechanism. This JGA, that is what's called, plays a major role regulating the functions of kidney. How? When there is a fall in blood volume, just actually blood volume, when you have a fall in blood volume, ultimately the flow blood to the glomerulus is being decreased. That also we have the flow. Once the flow blood to the glomerulus decreases, we have a fall in blood pressure in the glandular capillaries. That's why I mentioned a fall in glandular blood flow. This is because of fluid loss. And ultimately what will happen, the glandular blood flow just decreases. Ultimately we have the blood pressure also falls in the glandular capillaries. So also the glandular filtration rate. So all are interrelated. Fall in blood flow, then fall in blood pressure, and fall in glandular filtration rate. And these stimuli, fall in blood pressure, fall in blood flow, or just actually glandular filtration rate, activate the juxtaglomerular cells to release the hormone named renin. This renin converts one substance circulating in the blood, what is called angiotensinogen, into an active angiotensin. This angiotensin 1 activates angiotensin 2. This angiotensin 2 is a powerful vasoconstrictor, causing the constriction of blood vessels, thereby increasing the blood pressure. When the blood pressure is increasing, the cardiac output is increasing, the blood flow to the kidney is increasing, ultimately the glomerular filtration rate is also increasing. Whenever we have more blood pressure, ultimately the output of urine is also increasing. This is because of what's called renin-angiotensin effect. So angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2, that one causes a vasoconstriction, thereby increasing the blood pressure. When the blood pressure has been increased, the cardiac output increases, the blood flow to the kidney increases, and so also the glomerular filtration rate. This is another mechanism. Now, here you see that one. See, the homeostasis is disturbed because of decreased flow to kidneys. I mentioned C, when there is a flow of blood to the kidney decreases, so there is a decreased filtration, the glomerular filtration rate decreases. And ultimately the juxtaglomerular apparatus is activated, and this one leading to the production of renin, increased production. And this one causes the formation of angiotensin 1, and that one activates, actually this is being activates angiotensin 2. Now this angiotensin 2 is a powerful vasoconstrictor, causes a constriction of afferent arterioles, thereby increasing the blood pressure, and so also the glandular filtration rate, so the homeostasis is maintained. Now it is not only just causing the constriction of blood vessels, this angiotensin 2, it stimulates the adrenal glands, particularly the adrenal cortex, to release the hormone aldosterone. This aldosterone normally causes an increased reabsorption of sodium or increased retention of sodium, and ultimately when you have increased concentration of sodium, which also increases the blood volume, so also blood pressure, particularly just we have the same effect. And at the same time, this angiotensin also stimulates the central nervous system, and it causes the increased stimulation of the hypothalamus, that is so that the person just feels more thirst, he consumes more water, and more consumption of water also occurs, the volume increases, and when volume increases, ultimately the pressure increases, the cardiac increases, so also the glandular filtration rate. And along with, we have the sympathetic effect. Now this angiotensin also just stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, so that what will happen, increased cardiac output, increased vasoconstriction, and also the constriction of venous reservoirs all result in what is called increased blood volume. When you have more volume of blood, just we have the pressure increases, cardiac output increases, all are having the same effect. So we have the multiple effect of what is called the renin-angiotensin mechanism. So this mechanism is not only just causing the constriction of blood vessels, but also stimulating other structures, including what is called the hormones of adrenal cortex to reabsorb sodium. So all these things are interrelated. All are having what is called acceleratory effect. So the renin-angiotensin mechanism is having an accelerated effect. Now to have a check on this renin-angiotensin mechanism, we have another mechanism is operated. Now this is an accelerating effect. Now the same one is being given in a simple manner. So once the homeostasis is disturbed, when you have decreased glandular filtration rate, now the renin release increases, ultimately angiotensin activation, you have the elevation of blood pressure and blood volume, so that we have once again increased glandular filtration rate. So it is being given in a simple manner to maintain homeostasis. We have need badly this one, what is called renin-angiotensin mechanism. Now the same one. So angiotensin 2, I have given the same illustration. What is see? Activates adrenal cortex, release of aldosterone, reabsorption of sodium and water from the distal parts of the tubule, particularly leads to increase in blood pressure, and ultimately we have glandular filtration rate. Now the last one, I conclude just with this, role of heart in kidney function. Now this mechanism is working again what is called renin-angiotensin mechanism. So I mentioned renin-angiotensin mechanism is mainly accelerating effect, having accelerating effect. To check the renin-angiotensin mechanism, we have a mechanism operative inside the heart. So this is what is called ANF mechanism. See, atrial natriuretic factor mechanism. Atrial natriuretic factor mechanism. So when you have an increase in blood flow to the atria, namely right and left atrium. Now in the wall of the atrium we have a substance released. That release is actually affected by the atrial wall, and that substance is called atrial natriuretic factor, natural factor. Atrial natriuretic factor, just a natural factor controlling mainly, that is a urinary system, atrial natriuretic factor. Now this has an opposite effect. Angiotensin has what is called constriction effect on blood vessels. This has a dilatory effect on blood vessels. That one causes vasoconstriction. This one causes what's called vasodilation. So when you have the dilation of blood vessels, ultimately you know that one decrease in the blood pressure. So that what will happen, the angiotensin mechanism has been checked. So this is actually mainly concerned with to check the angiotensin, renin-angiotensin mechanism is having an accelerating effect. To check on this mechanism, we have ANF mechanism by the heart, that is what is called atrial natriuretic factor mechanism. This one normally the factor released by the atria, which is having the effect of vasodilation, increasing the diameter of the blood vessel, thereby decreasing the blood pressure, and so also the cardiac output. Ultimately the blood flow to the kidney has been decreasing, so also the glandular filtration rate has been diminished or decreased. So this is what is happening in regulation of kidney. So there are three factors: hypothalamus, the second one what is having actually within the kidney itself, intra, and also we have extrinsic factor by means of heart, which is having some effect on this one. So I will conclude with this one. We will continue further in the next class.